Hello, welcome to today's webinar on why a client-side PM is essential for ERP project success. I'm Brian DePew. I'm a program manager with RPI Consultants. And I've been through a number of projects over the years where for various reasons, a project has gotten off schedule and it hasn't produced the expected results that the client has expected. These projects can get off schedule for a number of reasons. There's a number of issues that cause projects to get off schedule and to basically delay implementations. And one key component to mitigate that risk is to have an experienced client side PM that can assist with the project moving forward. With me today is Heath Davis from Cooper University Healthcare. And Heath, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Heath, and I am the director of actually business applications at Cooper University Healthcare. And thank you for having me today. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Heath. Glad you joined us. What we'd like to do today is kind of walk through the importance of the project manager, an overview of the various components of the project management, and talk about some solution and key features around ensuring that you've got a good project management on your implementations. And then we'll dig into some key risk and issues with a project, and things that the project manager should notify, or should identify throughout the project. And we'll talk about our project approach, and then we'll go into some case studies that actual experiences I've been involved in, where a client-side PM was brought in to help get the project back on track. And then we'll open it up for any question and answers. So the first thing, with these big implementation projects, Infor Cloud Suite type projects, some of the issues that we've run into is that the PMO office on the client side doesn't have a dedicated mature PMO in-house, or they don't have the bandwidth. So they're involved in a lot of other projects that take away their effort into managing a large Cloud Suite implementation that they're involved in. And then usually you do need a dedicated full-time project manager in these Infor implementations. The other piece is around the PMO competence. I think what we've uncovered is that the PMOs, although they're very good and very knowledgeable, and they even have the experience in projects, they don't have the experience of dealing with an Infor implementation, a Cloud Suite migration. And there's a lot of components or pitfalls that cause that project to get off track. And it's very difficult if you haven't been through it to go ahead and know what is coming at that point in the project. So I don't know, Heath, did you want to comment on from your perspective, from the client side?
I would love to, Ryan. Yep. I'd love to. So just so everybody know, at Cooper has a PMO office, but Cooper was really looking for 100% actual dedicated PMs that were going to be allocated to GHR and also global payroll. And then on the Cooper side, we also we wanted to have a PM that was 100% allocated to FSM. And like at a hospital, right? Our PMs are on a lot of different projects, right? And we wanted the actual knowledge and expertise of a PM that can help guide us and also give us insight into things that we need, that Cooper needs to actually look at. So it was a huge value add to have a PM that has been through the process from, say, beginning to end, and gave us insight into different things that from the Cooper side, we would have never had that understanding. So I highly recommend anyone that's going through a Cloud Suite project, right, to have a PM that's truly been, that has been through the process, that can give you insight into everything, right? So thank you, Brian.
Right. Thanks, Heath.
Yeah.
Okay, so just some of the problem statement here and solution overview. Again, the when you're going from an S3 to another ERP solution like the Cloud Suite, there's a large amount of project coordination oversight that needs to take place. And there has to be that coordination not only with the project team, but who your implementer is. I think that's one key component is here, depending on who your implementation team is and their methodology, you have to understand the all the components and make sure that both parties are on the same page and expectations are laid out. Again, there's a lot of complexity around these projects. The quality of as far as the resource quality goes, one component around the project management is what experience or what tools have they used with these types of projects where you can assist in with the implementation team on the vendor side to ensure that you're using right tools and you've got other tools of value that you could use moving forward. And again, I just think that if you have a Cloud Suite PM with experience, they bring a lot of material to the table that can assist with the entire project. In this slide just kind of talks about some of the key features where you can, draw on the knowledge of not only the client PM, but that client PM has relationships where they can gather knowledge from from RPI to help with issue resolution, solutions, etc. So you've got another outlet to get information. I think another key component is around identifying risks and pitfalls from the very beginning of the project throughout the project. Every one of these large implementations have specific pitfalls that happen pretty much in every project. And knowing what those are ahead of time or during the project is critical. And of course, we talked about the access to project documentation, et cetera. So again, there's a lot of values to that, to having a client-side PM with some experience. So let's kind of dig in a little bit deeper around the various components of some advantages as in things that the PM needs to look into as they go into the project. And let's start with the planning stage. Again, depending on who your implementation partner is, their components and their strategy is going to be different. One thing you want to ensure is that the project schedule is reasonable. If you do not have a reasonable project schedule, that you're going to start from behind in the very beginning. So you got to make sure that you understand what that schedule is and what the components are, and to ensure that that can be accomplished in that schedule. One of the other key components is around roles and responsibilities. I think one of the biggest pitfalls is when that contract gets signed and the determination is made of what is going to be done, who's going to be involved in the project, and what those roles and responsibilities are. I think one of the biggest issues is getting a true understanding of what that means. So if you have a project manager who's been through it, they can evaluate that contract and ensure that both parties are on the same page of how much time commitment the consultants are going to do in the project versus how much is needed on the client side. So it's absolutely critical that that is discussed in detail and everyone has a good understanding of what it takes to be successful in this implementation. The other piece is around a communication plan. I think this is another big area of risk to ensure that there is cross-functional communication, that there is transparency, and there's a very clear communication plan developed all the way from the project teams with the consultants up into your executives. That is a key component, and it has a lot of value of being through it to understand what those communication paths are. The other piece is around a tenant strategy, which involves all the various components of training at each stage of the project. You've got to have a very good tenant strategy in place to ensure that that data is not getting overwritten, that you've got every component covered in that strategy, and everyone understands where they're going to be working, where all the technical development is going to be done at the various stages, when things need to get copied, etc. So that's a critical piece, and it is fairly complicated strategy that needs some knowledge in order to make sure it's correct what's being presented by your vendor. The other one is around setting expectations. There are so many components in the project, the big Cloud Suite projects, where the expectations of the client may not really be in alignment with what the expectations are of the consultants. And examples of that is, the time commitment from the consultants. What is their role in testing? What is their role in training? What is their role in, future state design? And what is the role of the client? There has to be some clear communications, clear discussions on what those expectations are. I've seen many cases where what the client thinks the consultants are going to do is not in alignment of what the consultants think. So it's critical, and all of these components should be done in the early stages if you can to really truly understand that. And it's very difficult if a project manager who has not been through this, they really don't have a good understanding of the key components and what to lay out and review in these in the contracts as they're laid out. Okay. So let's go talk about some other things around the experienced project management advantages of what's helpful here. And one is to represent the client. Been involved in many cases where the implementation team lays out a schedule, lays out a testing plan, lays out a tech development plan or report development plan that may not be realistic, that may have pitfalls in it, and a client-side PM with experience can raise those issues. If you haven't been through it before, it's very difficult to raise. So there's a lot of value in that. There's also a lot of pinch points at each stage of the project. So you're moving from your design stage into your build stage, into your testing stage. They are key points that need to be identified to ensure you're ready to move into that next stage. Again, a lot of this is laid out with your implementation partner. However, a lot of times what they consider to be, they consider that these pinch points are met or your goals are met for that stage may not be what the client believes. And I think and able to make sure there's alignment on that is a big value if you know what those are. If you just take the word of the implementation team, sometimes that is not the best approach. Okay, the other thing that we can bring to the table is executive reporting, dashboards. And again, implementation teams usually have various ones that they present, but there's a lot of knowledge that a client-side PM can bring to the table here with reporting and dashboards up to the executives. The other key component is identifying key decisions and risks. There are, again, as long as you've been through a project, you'll understand what decisions have to be made at specific times. What are those key decisions and what are those risks? There are a lot of risks, and they're pretty common in the big implementations around tech development, around report development, around testing that it really helps to have knowledge around those areas. The other piece is around project documentation. Like I said before, there's value in that a client-side PM that's been through it, especially with RPI. We have access to documentation, whether that's scripts, whether it's testing plans. There's a lot of pieces there that can help the client who's responsible to develop these items in hopefully streamlining that process. And again, it kind of falls in line with access to RPI resources. There's many times that subjects come up around needing some expertise. We have access to that expertise beyond what the current implementation team can provide. The other item is around cutover planning. Very critical in that you got to understand all the components around what a cutover plan would look like, not only including all the steps that have to take place in moving to the new version of Infor, but all those components that need to take place in your current legacy system. When we cut off reports, when we cut off security, when we cut off some of the tech developments that are going to be, or tech items that are going to be run. All of those things have to be planned out. And if you've been through and have been involved in a large implementation, you can bring those cutover plans, a very good baseline to the table, and they would just need to be tweaked. The other key components around post-go live support and making sure you've got a good plan in place and the experiences from past projects of what's successful and what's not. And the next component is around cost effectiveness. There is definitely a cost to bring in a client-side PM with experience. However, there is a lot of value and cost efficiencies in bringing a client-side PM to the table as your project manager. There are so many projects I've seen where the cost has been substantial because of delays for various reasons. And, I think there's a lot of advantage to having some experience here to keep the project on track and within budget. And then the last piece there is around improved cross-functional communication and team collaboration. I think this is absolutely critical. A lot of times in these big projects, the teams like to work in a siloed approach, and the cross-functional impacts can be very impactful. And knowing what's involved and what each team is involved in, the client-side PM can bring a lot of value to ensure that those cross-functional items are identified and you've got the correct communication taking place. Okay, just some of the key issues and risks that you will normally see in these projects are around tech development, report development. Those numbers are usually very high in what has to occur. In most cases, the client is responsible for those development items. And those are the types of things that cause your delays in your project. And I think it's critical to get a good understanding quickly in the project of what those items are, what is absolutely required for go live, and to come up with a very good development plan that is reasonable in the time frame that you have. Those are some of the biggest issues as you're going through your project. Testing schedules, same thing. I think, you've got to make sure that you've got complete schedules created, as well as your scripts and your scenarios identified, and make sure that the cross-functional testing is taking place and it is complete. That's a very big risk. The other risk is around conversions, migrations, validation. Again, there's a large amount of work in this area, not only on the technical side of doing the conversions or if the migration is being performed, but I think one of the key is the validation. The client needs to take the time to validate the data so that you got a correct data as you move forward. This is an area that is very time consuming and needs to be completed 100% in order to get good results. The other piece is around user readiness, which this is a very big piece, and we'll couple it with system readiness as well. So with system readiness, that is involving, is your system set up correctly? Is the testing going well? All of those pieces. And you usually get to a point where, yeah, you've tested it, everything looks good. The big question that sometimes gets missed is how ready are the users to take control of the system and to go live? I've seen many cases where the system works, but the users do not fully understand how it works and how to do their jobs and what the processes are. It really is around training, which is another bullet point. You have to gauge that and ensure that your team is ready to own the system. If not, you will have major issues that go live, where you will have to readdress processes and training, etc. So it's absolutely critical. Those three pieces around user readiness, system readiness, and training are absolutely critical for success. And the other piece is around resource commitment. Again, another key component is the availability of the resources that are on the project, not only from the implementation team, but from the consulting side. There has to be a true commitment and dedication to this piece, because that has a major impact on just getting things completed on time, as well as making sure they're ready to own the system. So those are kind of some of the major issues or risks in the big projects with these cloud suite implementations. And, a project manager that's been through it can help you guide you through these issues to ensure you're staying on time, which at the end of the day is going to help you in cost. Okay, so overall, I think what we kind of talked about is, if you were to get a client-side PM, they would come in and they would integrate into the client project team, working with them, helping coordinate the resources, along with being a project sponsor with whoever the implementation partner is. And again, they'll bring a lot of support, a lot of knowledge, a lot of documentation, and access to key critical information to help resolve problems as you go through the project. Okay, I'm going to move on to we'll move on now to some actual case studies that we've been involved in. The first one I'll talk about is we had a healthcare client who was going through an implementation, and they really needed a full-time project manager to work along the implementation team. But they really didn't have the resources available to staff that role. They really had an issue with the tech development getting completed, which caused major delays in that project. And they really didn't understand the technical requirements or the resources required for that type of an implementation. So we came in and we assessed the situation, and we provided the various solutions. So we got stepped in and worked alongside the implementation partners to reassess and complete the project planning activities, and basically engage the team to get involved in a successful implementation. We were closely monitoring the budget and the schedule, and identified variances and issues with what was occurring at the time. And we were able to bring them to the project leadership so that they could be resolved before it really impacted the project in a negative way. We were able to use knowledge from other implementations that I've been involved in to identify the areas of risk. In this case specifically was the tech development, and how do we correct what was happening and make sure that the impact to the project was positive. And at the end of the day, the results of that project, we were able to share the best practices, in the implementations, and we identified some go live critical tech development that was way behind schedule, and we developed a plan to ensure it was ready in time for system integrated testing. We did put some budget management tools in place that were RPI tools to give a better insight into the budget performance and areas of optimization. And we ended up having a successful system go live that maintained the budget and actually adhered to the timeline. So again, fairly common in that tech development was the main reason things were not ready to move into a system integrated testing phase, but we're able to get our hands around it quickly and come up with a new schedule. And again, we were able to set in some budget tools in place. Okay, Heath, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about your experience.
Hello, everyone again. So just to give you an idea about Cooper, right? Why did it work well, right? So having a actual dedicated PM to work alongside Infor, right? That is what Cooper was really going after, right? Cooper didn't have a team of PMs that could be 100% allocated. So that is why Cooper worked with RPI and bringing in some additional PMs to help us out on the project. And what I would also say is Cooper, we had communication challenges, right? We were working in different actual silos, right? And RPI helped bridge that gap, right? Cross the teams, right? And then, as everyone understands, probably you heard about Cooper, right? But, Cooper's been implementing Cloud Suite since 2019, right? And Cooper went live in October of 2023. But what I would say is once we got into a good cadence with RPI and also Infor, right, it really did improve, right? It was absolutely a great project. And And what I will say here is really develop efficient working cadences with each of the actual functional areas to ensure cross actual functional communication. That was key. We were, for a large part of the project, right, we were just communicating between GHR and payroll and FSM, and RPI helped bridge that gap. And that's key, right? When we're doing a large project, we got to make sure that we have open communication across all the different teams. And so that was like I would say to people, that was a win, right? Because I would say from a client perspective, RPI had our best interests at heart, right? So I just want to let everybody know that option is out there, and they can join your team of actually PMO, and they help really provide you that guidance. And the key thing also what they did was, they helped with our actual mock testing plan and cutover plan. They were instrumental because they helped give us insight with all their actual years of experience and what this cutover plan should really look like and give us ideas. So yeah, that was great to have that insight on the client side, someone that has been through this actual journey from beginning to end. So
Good. Thank you, Heath. Okay, want to go ahead. We did get some questions brought in, and I'll go ahead and address those right now. One was, what's the approach in getting a client-side PM involved and integrated into the process or into the project? And I think it's pretty straightforward. In a client I'm currently working with, there were major issues involved with client around the timeline and just making progress in the project. Things were delayed substantially for a various number of reasons. So when I got involved, the first thing is to really get a good understanding of where you're at. What's first of all, what's in the contract? What's in the project plan? What's the schedule look like? What are all the components? Where are we at? And evaluate where the problems are, and how do we get back on track and get to a good schedule moving forward and get the teams in alignment. So it does take some analysis, takes some time, some meeting time with the client, with the implementation partner, to say, hey, where are we at? What? And again, the other piece that comes up in those is that the client may have a different view of what's happening versus what the consultants, the implementation team is finding out is kind of issues. So they may not be on the same page. So I think all of those interviews and discussions of where are we not in alignment as one big team, because that has to happen. And then once that is done, then it's a matter of really coming up with what is, depending on what it is, what's that new schedule look like? And how do we get there? And all the components that need to take place, and coming up with a very good detailed plan with the implementation partner to get agreement and then move forward. So it does take a little while, but usually it's, you can get through that in a couple of weeks and pretty much come up with a pretty good idea of where you need to go, depending on where you're at. The other thing I would say is, if you can bring a client-side PM that's been through this process before in the beginning stages, it would be very valuable to let them, as you're going through and defining your contract and looking at the various components and bringing them early on to get the team to understand what the expectations are, which is absolutely critical. Okay, the next question, and Heath, this one was directed to you. Was a question about, knowing what the issues that you had in your project and then the outcomes at the end of the day. what would you do differently from the beginning or throughout the project?
Absolutely. Great question. So just to reiterate to everyone, like Cooper actually started our project right in April 2019, and we went live in October 2023. And I would tell you, when I talk to other clients out there, right, I have a list of X amount where these are things that if I had to do this again, right, I would pay close attention to. So what the first thing is actually, just make sure from the client side that you have dedicated resources on the project. And the term I use, there are no actual blackout dates, right? So just because we have to do a payroll run or this week, right, the project has to continue. If you're going to do this project, right, I would say there are no actual blackout dates, and you need a dedicated core team. That is one. Having actually PMs, right? Cooper wanted to have a PM over GHR and also global payroll, and then have a actual dedicated PM over FSM. That was a must, right? And that worked out extremely well. That's why we are doing this presentation today, because there is a huge value in bringing in a actual vendor PM to represent the client's interest. The next thing is quality gates. Quality gates in your project. So as you're going through the different actual phases of the project, just make sure that there's the right criteria after each quality gate to making sure that those things have been accomplished. You don't want to get too far into the project where you're in every phase of that project. So establish clear criteria when you enter and exit a quality gate. And I would just say what you heard earlier is from the IT side, right? To do all of our integrations, right? Because on the Cooper side, we were tracking our hours, and it took us somewhere between 10 and 12,000 hours to do all of our actual RICE integrations, right? IPA, config console. So what Cooper had to do was bring in additional help from an IT side to help us do the actual coding. So you got to plan that out, right? Because there is a good amount of effort that is going to go into your integrations. A pre-prod was important to have as we were doing this project, because it gave us another tenant, right? So I would say to everyone, just make sure that your pre-prod is included in the contract. And then the last one is SIP, where I would say we could have done a lot better job, right? Is when we talk about SIP, we want to make sure that we're testing our processes end to end. It doesn't mean we are just testing our processes within payroll or FSM. We want to create those end-to-end process through the journey of an ERP. And so when you're looking at your end-to-end, making sure it starts at the beginning of the process and it goes to the end of the process. And then my last plug, right? It's a plug, but I want to say is for those that are doing AP automation that are out there, right? There's all different tools. There's all different tools that are out there. But if you're looking for a tool that can do AP automation with OCR, and that is invoice processing, Cooper went live also with RPI, actually Yoga. And I would just say Cooper evaluated a lot of tools. It has been extremely actually beneficial, impactful. And so if you are looking at doing any type of AP automation, you just need to look at the RPI, actually Yoga, the RPI tool, because you will see value from your AP area. I promise you. So that's what I'd say.
Right. Thanks, Heath. Okay. The last question I've got is around, is there actually cost savings in bringing in an experienced client-side project manager? And I would argue that the answer to that is there is substantial cost savings that an experienced project manager will bring to the table. I've seen so many projects that have been delayed, which are very, very costly. And the cost of bringing in a client-side PM who can help keep the project on schedule, can help identify the issues that are occurring, can ensure that there is good alignment and communication between the implementation team and the client project team. Absolutely, there will be a lot of efficiencies built into the project if you have an experienced PM who understands all the various components in each of the functional areas, that can bring documentation, that can bring other key information from other experts to work alongside the team, as well as to work with the implementation partner. There is, I would argue that there is definitely a major cost savings to go with this approach, because it's just very difficult for an uneducated project manager who has never been through an implementation of this magnitude within Infor to truly be able to identify all those items that are going to cause you to delay, which again is very costly. So that was the last question. Again, we appreciate everyone who joined the webinar today. Heath, would like to thank you for joining us and providing your input. And again, if you have any questions, please submit them to questions@rpic.com, and we will get back with you. And again, hope to see you on another webinar. Thanks so much.